Hi everyone and welcome to the FilmDirt Lounge. Well, I've decided to dip back into the Omen franchise. I reviewed the trilogy a short while ago and enjoyed each of them thoroughly in different ways. The first film is obviously the best, I think that's widely accepted. And a lot of you guys told me how much you enjoyed my little deep dive into that story. So thank you for that. And I can tell you're not going to be quite so enthused with the fourth part of this quadrilogy, whatever you call it. I last saw this quite a long time ago. I think it was 20 years ago, where it was just on the TV. And I intended to watch it because I enjoyed the previous film so much. Once you start doing other things and you've got a film going in the background, you know at that moment it's lost you. You're not watching the film and it's not good enough to hold your interest. So we've had quite an up and down relationship with the Omen franchise, haven't we? We've gone from two excellent films, in my opinion, to a passable okay film, then a fourth film which was terrible, then an unnecessary remake which was a carbon copy of the original for some reason rather than retelling a similar story. Just really bizarre. And then a TV series which I completely missed, but I've heard from reliable sources that it was promising, but it just kept moving around the network. They couldn't settle on a specific time to broadcast it. I think they were just trying to play with whatever slot would be best for them, and it seems the audience just missed it, unfortunately. And now a couple of you guys have mentioned that there's an upcoming movie called, I believe, The First Omen. So I'm looking forward to that, and that's why I'm taking this little return to the franchise with Omen 4, The Awakening. It stars Faye, who's always been a solid actress in 80s TV. She's done a lot of good work in many shows. I don't think this one is her career highlight by any means. And also Asia Vieira as the new Antichrist, or is she? Called Delia. So first off, there's a lot of strange imagery in this film. What I immediately noticed was that it was very televisual. Now, I know this was originally a TV movie, and unfortunately it looks it in a bad way. Very much like the third movie was, and I did refer to that back in that review. It was very flatly lit, like they're filming in locations on the fly very quickly, and then they're moving on to the next location. That's what it looks like. Whereas maybe in 1 and 2 it's more cinematic and they're taking care to light certain parts and there's depth and, better filmmakers for those two. But for this one, Harvey Bernhard has returned to churn out this fourth picture, which I'm assuming had even a smaller budget than the third film did. And a lot of the story here is just a little bit confusing, where it's pushing different aspects of a story repeatedly. For the original 3, there was one story, the coming of the Antichrist and these other people that are protectors of him, and it held on that story. We see him from a child and then slightly older and then an adult. For Omen 4, we've got a couple of double bluffs here. I thought that the new nanny, I thought she would be evil as well. Another double bluff I felt was the birth of Alexander. I thought that may have been the second coming. What else have we? The nun as well. I didn't understand what those nuns were about. I'm assuming that the nunnery or the church was an evil one. But the acting was just very strange in places. You've got a class full of children and they're looking out the window all at the same time. This is not subtle filmmaking. This is like a musical or a theatre production. And the street choir as well. I didn't know what any of that was all about. Just out of place and confusing. And I think it had a lot to do with the facial acting of the supporting characters as well. There's lots of gurning into the camera. I didn't quite understand if anyone was evil or just a bystander. And the fair as well, the one that burst into flames. Why did it? Just didn't really understand what was going on for large portions of this film. And a lot of the deaths were definitely watered down. The first one, the neighbour in the car, that was by far the best. And the others were pretty much forgettable. Landing on the roundabout, just nowhere near the shock value of the other films. So we have to also touch on the return to politics as the basis of evil here. Delia's father is running for something and really hammering home that politics is the root of all evil. I think they've got a valid case here. I think that's probably one of the few positives of this film. So I've got to talk about the new Antichrists, both of them. Yes, there was two in this one for some reason. I believe Alexander was supposed to be the Antichrist. Is that how it was supposed to play out? And the older sister is something like a false prophet, or the ultimate protector of the real evil. Asia Vieira as a child actress in this, I thought she did really well. Really likeable. Got a kind of an Italian look about her. I don't know the actress or her career, but it goes back to the first film for me, in the Italian monastery, and I thought that was a nice little link. But maybe too cute as well to be evil. There was something about the other actors in the previous films where there was a menace behind the eyes, but I don't think Delia was on the same level. And also for young Alexander, with the 3 6s mark on his palm, does that make any sense? And surely his mum would have seen it, or did it just appear? That's not how it works. In the first film, I think they made it a possibility it could be anywhere, not just on the scalp. And wasn't it Father Brennan, when he was examined after his death, that the mark was on his inner thigh? Much more harder to discover. Having a giant, obvious birthmark on the palm, just absolutely terrible. I couldn't believe they actually went with that. And also, Delia is already pretty powerful. And it takes me back to my earlier point where, I think it was Omen 2, where it was much more subtle. Damien wasn't necessarily in control of his power, or even knew he had it, until quite late on. But here, just far too obvious. I think they were struggling for ideas for this story and on where to take it. So you can tell I'm not really a fan of this film. And from what I've seen online, not many are. I'm going to give this 1 star. I didn't want to give it less because there's an effort here and there to turn in a good performance. And that's probably Faye and Asia Vieira. They're probably doing exactly what they've been directed to do. And also Michael Woods as her father, perfectly decent performance. So I don't think I'm going to revisit this film anytime soon. Twice is enough, I think. So with that, all I'm going to say is that I'm looking forward to the first Omen. Fingers crossed it's good, because I am a fan of the Omen films. I think the first 3 had something about them. There was an intrigue, and I did mention in those reviews that the third is generally seen as the worst. I did notice it did create the most discussion because it was quite an ambiguous ending, and a few of the threads went in a certain way we weren't expecting. And I guess that's the trait of a decent film. So this series is still a trilogy rather than a quadrilogy for me. So thanks again for joining me for this little reminisce. I'll speak to you again about films very soon. Like and subscribe and all that jazz. All the best and take care.